Hi, I'm Bill Sheehy from Latin American Masters, and the piece we're looking at is called View from the Mayan Train. It is the centerpiece, really, for our current exhibition at Latin American Masters. Francisco Toledo made this piece at the end of his life. He unfortunately passed away in 2019 at the age of 79. This was found in his studio upon his passing. Why did we pick it as the centerpiece for this show? Well, aside from the fact that it is a piece of extraordinary originality, I've never really seen a work like it by Toledo or anybody else. It's also a piece that's quite topical and at the same time, because of Toledo's gifts as an artist, very universal. Let's take a second and look at it, and then I'll talk specifically about the piece. So it's called View from the Mayan Train, and you can see the train tracks clearly down below as they barrel and twist into a darkened tunnel. Above the tunnel, there's a very white area that's, to my eye, very reminiscent of the lime that was often used to coat the ancient pyramids. You don't see it today because over hundreds of years it wore off, but Toledo would have been very aware of that. Above the white walls, you have a very black line that bisects the composition with another parallel line above it. And then you've got this sort of stepped form moving up into the sky. As you follow the black line, the first black line down to its bottom, you can see the image of a face of something with a big eye staring out at you. So what's really going on here? Well, Toledo made this piece in response to a project currently underway to build tourist trains to Mexico's ancestral pre-Hispanic architectural sites. And Toledo, as you might gather, had grave reservations about the destructive potentials of this sort of commercial operation, and it's the way in which it might endanger rather the natural habitat, as well as the ancient natural heritage and patrimony, both of Mexico and the world. So what's most unsettling about the piece, and is so both dreamlike and shocking, is that the train tracks, it's not just that the train tracks go into a tunnel. We've all seen train tracks do that. But this particular tunnel is in fact going right through the middle of an ancient pre-Hispanic pyramid or temple. And we know that because, first of all, you can see the triangular shape of the pyramid form, but you also have this face down below, which is in fact, on one level, the image of a snake. And at many of these ancient Mayan sites, you'll find these images of the snake, the Quetzalcoatl, at the base of the stairways to the tops of these pyramids. And those stairs are represented here by this really wonderful application of coppery brown pigment that Toledo has manipulated in a way that it almost shimmers, and that step pattern moves upward to the right-hand corner of the composition. So there's an interesting rhyming going on here between the steps of the pyramid and the similar geometric patterning and rhythm of the train's tracks. So that's interesting. What might that be about? One starts to suspect that whatever this piece has to say about current events in Mexico and the destruction of a culture, that there's a lot of other things going on of a more psychological nature. Notice the signal here for crossing. That's interesting. It's made out of mica, which is a pre-Hispanic material used thousands of years ago by the ancients. The psychological dimension that I'm referring to is that keep in mind that this is one of the last pieces that Francisco Toledo did, found in his studio upon his passing. And to my eye, this base of the pyramid where you see the snake, I think the snake is also Toledo. And that the image of that snake is not unlike a close-up of somebody's face, in this case Toledo with a white mustache, whose image, his face, is being reflected in what is essentially the rear view mirror of a vehicle that we can't see. And that's one of the things that's really interesting about this piece. Toledo sets you, its point of view, it's as if he sets you on a train. You can't see the train, you can see the tracks ahead of you, but if you glance, you can see the reflection of a face in the mirror. This sort of rhyming of, in my eyes, the snake with the presence of Toledo is interesting because it both connects him with the ancients, and in a sense, the very act of making the painting is a way of entering into the consciousness of those forces that would want to protect the ancestral and sacred sites, the basis of culture. And so that's interesting. Plus, as you know from riding in your car, when you look in the rear view mirror, you're looking backwards, you're not looking forward. So here you're barreling forward into this darkened tunnel while looking at yourself and looking at what has gone before you. I think that's significant because, again, this was done near the end of the artist's life, and it doesn't take a genius to figure that going into a darkened tunnel, going into the underworld, is both has a mythological connotations, but it also is an image of mortality. And so there is an awareness in the piece, a rhyming of the convergence of different worlds. One is the world of the modern world of the tourist train combined with the ancestral. The other is the world of a living human being and living human consciousness that's nonetheless aware of its own mortality and the way in which it's proximate, it's coming on quickly. So that to me is very interesting. The tracks and the sort of rhyming of the stairway with the tracks is interesting for another reason, because up above you can see the way Toledo has gone yet another direction spatially, and the piece is very daring spatially. The flipping of the steps of the pyramid, he sort of turned them up like this so that you can read them on a flat surface. And up above you can see this sort of combination of the train tracks in shape with the color that's much like the steps of the pyramid. I think that that's interesting because where the rest of the composition is all going this way, up above you have this sort of combination of the elements going another way. And I think it's very metaphysical. If one thinks about the relationship between, there's this old saying, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. There's an awareness here in this sort of restatement of the train tracks imagery that whatever's happening here has been transformed in some way and is moving to another world, another metaphysical space. So you get some idea from this, hopefully, of the way in which Toledo's mind worked. He found a way to make a work that would address specific events in Mexico that he found catastrophic, which I might add are a problem all over the world, where people want to commercialize anything that they can, often at the expense and destruction of culture. And Toledo, as a lifelong advocate of not only a great painter but a great activist, was using some of his last bits of energy to make a statement against what he saw as a irresponsible form of commercial development. But because he was a great artist, he also found a way to visualize the ancient pre-Hispanic pyramid and the psychological sort of shock of these worlds converging. And if that's not enough, he found a way to rhyme those with his awareness of his own mortality. If you'd like to know more about Francisco Toledo, please visit our website. I thank you very much for your time.